Hello, hello. Welcome back to another episode of the Wealthy Legacy Journey. I'm your host, Kendell Liden, and this is a show where we talk about building wealth on purpose for a purpose. And the title of today's episode is, drumroll please, The Journey is a Marathon, Not a Sprint. And maybe this is something that only I struggle with and you guys don't struggle with, but sometimes I struggle with like we're sitting here trying to build wealth, do all these things, but it takes time. It's like planting seeds, and you plant the seed, and you're like, okay, I want to see growth. Like, maybe if I water it, and you water it, and you're like, okay, I get it. Got to give it a day. Step away, you go back to it, and then you go look at the pot again. You're like, I'm still looking at dirt. And then you go back the next day, and you're like, I'm still just looking at dirt. What the heck? And then you go back like a couple days later, and I'm still looking at dirt. And then you kind of start to wonder. It's like right about the time we start to wonder, like maybe these seeds are bad. They're not going to grow. And all of a sudden, a little bit of life comes up, and you see this one little green speck, and you're like, yes, we have a life. It's working. It's so exciting. You got this like little bit of just something poking through. And then you go look at it the next year, like, okay, now it's going to be a freaking monster plant. We're about to start producing fruit off this thing. And you go back, and the next day, and you're like, oh, it looks about the same. And then you go the next day and you're like, oh, cool. Like it has an extra leaf, maybe, but not like crazy. And it's just this slow growth over time. And I guess this hits kind of close to home because we planted some seeds with the kids of cilantro. They planted some flowers, some tomatoes, and just let them see what this process looks like. We planted those seeds several weeks ago. It seems like something like that. I don't know. I couldn't tell you the time exactly. If I asked Libby, she could tell you the exact time and day that we planted them. You ask me, I could give you a rough frame. Like we planted them sometime in the spring of 2024, but outside of that, the best you're gonna get before April 11th. I can give you that. I'm recording this on April 12th, so I know it was definitely before yesterday. It was a couple weeks ago, sometime or another. But anyways, but that same principle of just realizing that it's like I'm not going to see instantaneous growth out of those plants. But that doesn't mean that the seed isn't doing what it's supposed to be doing. It doesn't mean it's not working. It doesn't mean I need to uproot all the soil, pull out those seeds, throw them away, and start over because I'm really just going to start that process over. It means I need to wait. I need to be patient. Yes, there's things that I can do to help. Watering it goes a long ways, right? Watering it with something that really helps plants to grow. Like we have this kind of seaweed mix that we use for our plants. That grows an even longer way, making sure they have adequate sunlight and stuff. So there's steps, right, that we can take for plants to help them to grow. Same thing, there's steps that we can do inside of our wealthy legacy journey to help us grow. And don't worry, guys, I'm preaching to the choir because even this week, I was wanting some things to be a sprint. And that whole, this is a sprint, or this is a marathon, not a sprint, that actually comes from my beautiful, lovely, amazing, and beautiful wife, Libby, who said that to me whenever I was stressing out about all these things that I was wanting to get done right now. And she was like, Kendall, this journey that we're trying to accomplish is a marathon, not a sprint. I was like, okay, I get that, but can we move faster through the marathon? But it doesn't work that way. And I one of the downsides, at least about my personality, and I've been learning a lot about like the pros and cons of my personality type lately. One of them being is that whenever I come to like a new opportunity, I get excited, I want to sprint, but then I get tired and I want to quit. But then I quit and I get bored and then I want to sprint again, but typically into another new opportunity. Whereas Libby is so much better at being slow and steady. Like I want to be like Libby when I grow up. I want to be the tortoise, right? I want to be able to be the slow, the steady, the consistent. There are good sides to my personality because I help us to jump into new frontiers. I help us to do new things, to get out of our comfort zone. The problem with my personality is I get out of my comfort zone a little bit on this, and a little bit on that, and a little bit on this, and a little bit on that, to where I do a whole lot of everything, but not a ton of anything. Kind of the jack of all trades kind of thing. Um, and because I just don't settle in and focus and make that thing my specialty because I get bored with it. Or I don't want to have to overcome the obstacle, or I get tired of it, and so then I quit and I have to go figure out something else. Excuse me. So, something I want to share with you guys that I needed this past was if you're in a moment, if you're in a situation where you're feeling overwhelmed, whether it be a decision, whether it be something that you're facing, you're feeling overwhelmed by it. Step back. I want you to do four things. Number one, ask yourself, where are you at right now? You might even write this down if you're feeling a little overwhelmed about something that you're in. Number two, where is it that you want to get to? Where is it that you want to go? Right, so now we know where we're at. We know where we want to go. Then the next step, step three, is what steps have to happen in order for you to get from where you're at to where you want to go, right? And start simple, break them down, right? Make it very specific. Step number four is what then is the right next step? Because so often I feel overwhelmed and unsure about what do I do next? What's the right thing to pursue? Do I go down, the right path? Do I go on the left path, especially when you hit these forks in the road? Do I continue doing what I'm doing? Do I change it up and do something else? And so you really got to know, where is it that you're at right now, and where is it that you ultimately want to get to? Once you can figure out those two things, then you just break it down into bite-sized pieces of what are all the things that at least you can think of that have to happen along the way to get you from where you're at to where you want to go. And then all you got to do from there is simply focus on the next right step. And if after you break all that down, you start to do the next right step and you start to realize that it's too far away to get to that next right step, then break it down even further. I'll give you an example. If I sat here and I said, okay, I want to have $1 million, say, okay, where am I at right now? Right now, currently, I'll tell you exactly what we're doing, because that's actually our big goals. Lydia and I we are both having clear-mindedness. We want to get to $1 million. Last year, I was in a completely different situation. Last year, a company had just failed. I had literally no cash. I think we had like $8,000 left that we were bleeding through from a previous company. We had like no money left. By the way, when I say $8,000, I don't know what that means for you guys, but for us at that time, we had a burn rate of about $8,000 per month. We literally had like 1 month left to live off of the money that we had. And so all of a sudden, first step for me at that point was I had to get a job to stop the bleeding. Then we had to lower our expenses. We had to lower what was going out in our lives, slow down, that outflow, and gain some positive cash flow back into our lives. Then I had to find where I could get some equity, whether that was buying into equity by purchasing a deal myself, or that was, offering up some wisdom where I could gain equity in some sort of deal from the knowledge from what I know. And so the first thing that I actually branched out is with NK Legacy Properties with Nathan. And one of the big deals that we bought was Hudson. And I ended up getting equity in that deal. I have a 33% equity position in that deal because of what I know. And I pushed that deal through and I showed him how to do deals just like that. Now he's continuing to do deals just like that. I'll be honest, I'm a little bit jealous, realizing that, well, wait a minute. I know how to do this, and I was just paid how to do this, and then now he's doing it. Like, why have I not been doing this whole time? Like, it bothered me. I realized that I know a lot more than I gave myself credit for. That's okay, because I'm correcting things now. And so now in that deal, I've got about $100,000 to $150,000 of equity with my 1/3 position. Don't get me wrong; that is an amazing equity position to have. You might not quite get that out of the gate. Another thing that we did, Libby and I, we paid off all of our debts, bringing up more cash flow, and then we started setting aside money. So one of the other things that we did is we took $10,000 and we set it. We bought a tax sale lot, and inside of that lot, the realtor said it was worth about 55 to 60. So if we're just being conservative, saying it's worth about 50, you've got about 10% in closing costs, title, and all that kind of stuff. So it puts us like 45. I have in that deal, I have 75% of the money invested. And so the way that I split it up on this particular JV is I said 50% goes to the acquisitions, dispositions, all that kind of stuff, which is I did 100% of that. So I immediately got 50% of the deal. The other 50% goes to the money. I invested 75% of the capital. My JV partner invested 25% of the capital, which means that I get 75% of the 50% and I get 100% of the other 50%. So that gives me, not to be confusing with the math there, that gives me like an 80. I'm trying to do this quickly in my head. 75% of 50% would be 12 and a half plus 25 is going to be 37.5 plus 50, 87.5. So I have 45% stake inside of this deal. And so just for easy math, let's just say 90%. So if we get 50,000, we go down to 45 after, paying title, paying agents and all that kind of stuff. We're going down to 45. We put, let's just say $15,000 into the deal for easy math. We put $13,000 into it. And then we did another $1,000 for the survey. We just signed off on that, which is awesome. So we actually have like $14,000 into the deal, but just for easy math, let's just say we put 15, gives me $30,000. And then my walk away is, like I said, 87.5, almost 90%. So a little bit less than 27, a little bit less than 27. So maybe about 25,000. Plus I get my original 10 back. So I turn 10,000 into 25,000. So I have 2 acres in Anderson. That's that deal, Anderson County, Texas. And so those 2 acres, I have $25,000 of equity-ish tied up into that deal, along with my $10,000 of capital. So I have $35,000 total equity for my $10,000 invested. I have $0 invested in Hudson. I have $100,000 to $150,000 of equity, just depending on how all that closes and where it closes. And so those 2 deals right there. Another thing that we're doing in our own personal lives, as we're kind of taking the right next steps, is I took a pay cut, as you guys know, about a month or maybe a month and a half ago now. And so with that, we felt that we literally have 0 cash flow in our lives anymore. So we're selling the house. Now, we just had a realtor over to the house yesterday. And after we sell our home, we are going to end up with approximately, I think the number was like 55. I think we end up with about $55,000 that we're going to be able to pull out after everything's paid for. And so after tithe, we'll be at about 50. And then we are going to put about $30,000 into the 5th wheel that we're buying to move into as a family. We will own that cash. And the place where we're going to park, it's only going to cost us $500 per month to park there. And that's going to be everything included, which is awesome setup. So we were able to really lower down from, this place being a $1,700 a month mortgage. We've got the utilities on this trailer as well as the house. And correction from last week, I thought the most expensive month was $600. Libby told me that our most expensive month last summer for electricity was $750. Ouch, right? So we're going to be able to get rid of a lot of expenses because our next place is $500. Utilities are included because it's just hooking up to the 5th wheel. So the hookups are included, which is going to be awesome. So we're going to free up conservatively about $1,600 a month in cash flow, possibly pushing even $2,000, maybe a little bit north of that if we can really slim down our budget with the pay cut. And so these are all the things that we've done. And then again, we're continuing to, so we're going to get from this house about $20,000 in equity that we're going to retain. We've got our tax return that we are going to invest back into the market because we actually got a return this year, which is great. Last year was really painful financially. The great part about it, we have 3 kids, self-employed, had the house and all this kind of stuff, got all these credits. So we got a little bit of money back, which is great. That really did feel good. We also had the assignment deal that I told you guys about last week. So some of that money is going to go into fixing up the house, but I'm thinking it's going to be less than about $2,000. We actually just had to put almost $1,000 into the minivan, about $840 to do our CV axles and shocks. So ouch, that kind of hurt. But man, did I tell you what, did it feel good to have several $1,000s sitting in the bank, totally different position than we were in this time last year. We were losing money. Now we're on the upward climb. And so by the end of the year, if we break that all down, pull up my paper here. So we have our 2 acres, and that's roughly $35K in equity. I've got Hudson, and it's 150 to 100. So if we split the difference, I want to say it's 125. Quick math, but I'm just going to do the math here on my calculator. Yep, 125. So we're going to just split the difference. So I've got 35. We're going to say on Hudson, I've got about $125,000 of equity. That just gives me a little bit more of a conservative number. It might be a little bit less than that. Could be a little bit more than that. On my house, I am going to, after we purchase the trailer cash, we're going to have roughly $20,000 left to invest back into the market. Between the deal next door, the tax return after doing some stuff on the house and the van and stuff like that, let's just let's just assume that I'm able to walk away with about 10 grand from all of that. It might be a little bit less, might be a little bit more. That's going to be 10. And then I think that's all of the cash that we have. And then I'm trying to think. And then we have cash flow, and we'll free up $1,600 per month cash flow to reinvest. And so if you look at that, by the end of 2024, let's say that all these deals close and they're pay out by the end of this year, you have 35 plus 125 plus 20 plus 10. So you're talking about we will have a general ballpark net worth, this being true assets, not my house that I have to sell in order to get the equity out of, which I'm experiencing right now. So I have a net worth, and this is, again, this is me taking the money from my house and the cash that we'll end up with afterwards, about 30K, not reinvesting it yet. If we're able to, double or triple that money, then we'll be able to turn that 30K into like $60,000 to $90,000. But without including that extra 30 to 60,000 on there, we'll have a net worth of sitting around $190,000, and we're going to have a positive cash flow of $1,600 per month. Wow. I'll tell you what, that right there, that feels awesome. And so then looking at that, I'm going to say 190,000 to, if we're able to, let's just say, double the money that we have on our house, it's going to be an extra $30,000 in net worth. So to put us at like 220K. And let's say that we can get Hudson paid out before the end of the year, and we can double our equity on that as well and turn that 125 into another 125. Well, then that would put us at 220 plus 125. We could have up to maybe $345,000 net worth. So what I want you guys to see is that is the biggest net worth. If I'm even 190K, that's the biggest net worth that I've had at a single given moment ever in my life. And then also to be cash flowing $1,600 a month over and above what my expenses are going to be, that's going to feel awesome. Now, I want to tell you right now, that is not big living to get that $1,600 a month. That is living tight. But one of the great things that we just got to experience is 10% of our money that we get off of, off of our active investment income and our passive investment income. We take 10% and put that away in fund money. So on the assignment deal that I just made 10K off of, we set $1,000 aside for fund money. And that's where we get to just be able to breathe a little bit. Obviously, we don't want to spend through that too quickly. That just allows us to breathe in our budget a little bit and go like, okay, even though we're eating a whole bunch of rice and beans and some chicken, we are now getting to experience a little bit of fun. Libby and I can go on really, really conservative, cost-effective dates, but to be able to go out again and not just not spend money, which has kind of been the case for the last year for the most part. So that feels super good. But taking a step back to you is, I want you to think, like, a year ago, I was like, how do I get to $1 million? Well, in 1 year's time, this is what I've been able to accomplish, is getting to the place where, as of right now, I hold, we're gonna list our house probably early May, so just in a couple weeks. And we really do hold a lot of this net worth here. I mean, the net worth, I guess I didn't count the net worth in the fifth wheel, but those depreciate so quickly. That's where we're going to buy a used one because we're probably not going to get our money back out of it. That just kind of is what it is. But we're going to get our money back out of it in dividends on that cash flow. And so anyways, looking at it though, to think that, a year ago I had a failed business, was trying to get rich quick. I was trying to build the bot that would trade the stock market, make us millions of dollars every single year, which would have been super great. Don't get me wrong. Would have taken away all my money concerns for the rest of my life, but I guess God has different plans. I couldn't figure it out. Um, anyways, so I was able to praise the Lord in 1 year, 1.5 years. If you look at the end of this year, be looking at 190 to $345,000 of net worth in just a year and a half. Being dedicated, disciplined, cutting down my budget, making the right moves, investing, paying myself first, minding my own business, building something more, paying off my debt, doing all these different things like Robert Kiyosaki and Dave Ramsey talk about. Two, specifically that I really admire and I look up to as far as like investing guys. There's plenty of other awesome people to go into their different investing principles. But for them, specific like money management and investing, they've got some really good things to say in and around that stuff. But I've heard somebody say before that it's like most people often overestimate what they can accomplish in a year and underestimate what they can accomplish in a decade. And I think the same could be said for any other time frames. I think people overestimate what they can do in a month, underestimate what they can do in a year, overestimate what they can do in a week, underestimate what they could do in a month. Most people overestimate what they could do in 1 day, or underestimate what they could do in a whole week's time. And but what Libby said was so true. The journey is a marathon; it's not a sprint. And something I'm having to tell myself, and I want to tell you guys right now, is focus on the next double. That's why we have Double Dare Your Money. I have that for myself. I'm training and teaching myself how to just focus on the next double, not the big picture. How do I turn $1 into two? How do I turn 10,000 into 20,000, 20,000 into 40,000, 40 to 80, 80 to 160, 160 to 320? It's just simple, bite-sized steps. And one thing I want to encourage you guys with is that the Rich Dad game, the cash flow board game, you can find it at richdad.com/classic. I don't make any money from you going there, but it makes me feel good that you guys could learn some of the same lessons that I learned from Robert Kiyosaki's board game. That game is just really encouraging because that is a way you can sprint through this process and see, if I take years based on this game, because every time you rotate the board, it's basically 3 months, it's a quarter. But you can rotate that board obviously, and just if you're playing it by yourself in about a minute. And so, you're rotating through a whole year's time in just a couple minutes. And you get to see how this stuff works. And it's I think you learn some amazing lessons from it. I just played it probably 3 or 4 times this last week because I was feeling a little bit in the dumps. I was feeling a little bit like I wanted this all to move faster, but at the same time, some things in my life were moving too fast. And it's just a really great way for me to remind myself, like, what is it that we're doing? How do I realign myself with where we're going and what we're doing? Where am I at? Where am I going? What are the steps to get there? Just stick to the program, keep doing the thing. I tell myself that over and over and over. That's why when I get on these episodes, I might sound like a broken record saying the same things over and over and over, but it's just because I literally have to tell myself the same thing over and over and over. Don't get discouraged. Don't quit. Keep doing the right things. I've even been a little bit scared lately. I'm like, what happens if I move my family into this fifth wheel and, I go out and I buy these assets and I'm wrong about them and we lose money. But then I think, what is the best thing that I could do with my money? Should I, stay in tremendous debt where I'm, basically zero cash flow, and if something pops up into my life, I go into negative territory? Is that wise? No, it's not wise. Should I take all my extra capital and just bury it in the ground? No, it's a terrible decision. Inflation is going to eat me up, right? So what is the best thing that I could do? Invest in assets. Buy something that'll ride the wave with the market. And so even if I'm wrong about how much it's worth, I would rather be holding assets than holding cash. That's, especially the United States dollar is really a fiat. I mean, it's fake currency. Nothing else really to be said. It's not backed by anything. It's not backed by gold. It's not backed. Literally, its value is given to it by the confidence of the people that hold it. So if we lose confidence, it loses value. That's it. And I don't know if you guys ever noticed, but human beings are a little bit of fickle creatures, and we kind of sway. And so I don't want to be holding a whole bunch of cash when everybody just decides one day that we don't like cash, and everybody gets on that bandwagon, and all of a sudden cash becomes worthless. Not to say it can't be used, but I don't want to hold a majority of my wealth there. And so, it's like, what would I encourage myself to do if I wasn't me? I would say, hey, what is it that you know how to do really well? If I was answering the question, say real estate. What type of real estate do you enjoy? I like land. I don't like being in debt. I want to do something I can afford. So tax sales are the perfect avenue for somebody like me. So just do tax sales. Trust that you know what you're doing. Realize up front that you're going to make some mistakes. You're going to have deals that don't go your way. But you know what? I'm also going to have deals like the 2 acres in Anderson County that ended up working out way better than I thought it was going to. I bought that property for 13,000. My max was 15,000 because I thought I could probably push 30,000. And then after I bought it, took a second look and I thought, you know what? I might actually be able to push 45,000. And then I sent it to a realtor and they said, man, I think you can push 55 to 60. You don't always get that every day, but that one was a great deal. And by doing the thing, I'll continue to find other great deals. There's a verse though that I've been really just steeping on this week that's been so good for me. It's 2 Timothy 1:7. For God has not given us a spirit of timidity, but of power, love, and discipline. Some other versions are God does not give us a spirit of fear, but of peace, love, and a sound mind, which I really like that. But the NASB version 2020, God has not given us a spirit of timidity, not just fear, but to be timid like a mouse, to step away, to step back from challenges, to step back from the difficulties, to not push through adversity, push through the unknown, push through the difficult. That spoke to me. God doesn't give me a spirit of timidity. God gives me a spirit of power to push through the obstacle, to push through the hard, to push through the unknown. A spirit of love, to love my family and love others while I'm going through it, to not let this stress degrade me to a point where I am an unlovable, prickly, mean person. And discipline, the ability to continue just doing the right thing, step after step after step after step. It takes discipline to get through a marathon. Anybody can sprint for a time, but it takes discipline to make the distance. Libby encouraged me to recognize also that selling her home is a big deal. This is something that she challenged me on in this whole it's not a sprint, it's a marathon thing. She told me, and she's right, it's a huge life transition. We're going to get a huge capital gains from it. We're going to really greatly increase our cash flow, all amazing things from an investment perspective. So she actually asked me to consider not going to the tax sale in May to reduce our stress load and focus on the investment of selling our home. And I'm considering it. She actually asked me like just after I'd finished doing the due diligence for the tax sale. I was just kind of stressed out really this week and I just started knocking out tasks. I put everything on the piece of paper. This is my to-do list right now with 7 projects. I've got Toller, Pilgrim, Alamo, Newkirk, Vinery, and FM 1807. I thought about recording videos of me doing this, but to be honest with you guys, I really don't enjoy project management, and I don't want this channel to become people coming here to watch me do project management because as fast as I can, I want to be done flipping houses because I really, really don't enjoy this stuff. So I don't think I'm actually going to end up recording projects, but if you're curious about whether I really actually do this or not, there's a whole punch list for you. I've got plumbing and electrical quotes on so many properties and AC and skirting and main stuff and blue tape and yeah, it's a thing. I'm just not a super organized person, and so it's just a little bit of a struggle for me. But you know what? It puts food on my family's table, and I'm so grateful for that. But yeah, so do I go to this tax sale in May? I basically got, I'd like to spend about $8,500. It's right now the right time to be spending $8,500 when we're trying to buy the 5th wheel, put money into our home. We're about to get paid out from our home pretty significantly. But do I want to strap myself for cash while I'm going through this transition? It's hard because on one hand, I want to consistently keep moving forward. So it's like I have cash. I want to just deploy it in the market and get it working for me. On the other hand, I'm actually giving a lot of the books over to Libby because I realize that Libby is way better about being slow and steady. And I'm actually thinking about this as I'm telling this to you guys. She's way better about not being risk heavy. I'm way more risk heavy. She's more risk adverse. So we complement each other well when I choose to listen to her. trying to do that more because I realize she has a lot of wisdom to give. Um, if I'm being honest, like the risk heavy side of me is like, man, just keep it in the market, keep it moving, keep it going. But all of a sudden, if I'm dying for cash and then I have to liquidate at a steep discount or even worse, a loss because I need that cash back, I would really regret it. Um, and I don't want to make a mistake because I'm just trying to push through. Um, so it's been a good chat, guys. I appreciate that because now I'm actually even more considering it. I'm giving Libby a lot of the. I want to give her more of the reins in the books because I want her. I want to be able to set aside enough money where it's like we always have a cushion there. Because obviously we'll be at a place where we can now keep a cushion. But then her also be able to say like, okay, babe, this month we need to spend 20, 30, 40, $50,000 in investments. Find us the best deals because that's the challenge that I want. But I also don't want to run down to zero, which is a bad habit of mine. So, I think if that's the direction that Libby's leading for having a safety net while we're, having a lot of money come in and out, it's probably not a bad idea. This will be a great, to be able to, essentially make 55,000 and get cash flow off of it. You couldn't ask for a better investment play. Now it's not directly giving us cash flow; that's freeing up cash flow for my income, but still, to get a very strong positive cash flow, as well as getting all the equity out. That's an important investment. Plus, I can't overlook the fact that this is my family's home, and this is not a small. It's not a small feat. And this journey of building wealth really is it's a marathon, not a sprint. And maybe taking 1 month off of tax sales to lighten the stress load on my family would be better than trying to force it and push something through, even just for the sanity of my family. So I'm thinking on it. I'm not committing to it one way or another, but I need to chew on this because it's hard for me. But I am trying to let go of the reins. It's one of those things where it's like I already think I know what the right decision is, which would be waiting, but I just have to come to terms with it. And same with Charlie, our farm dog. We don't have a farm here for him anymore, and obviously, when we're moving, we're not going to have a farm. And so, there's been a lot of talk about the fact that we don't need Charlie anymore. And Charlie, not that we don't want Charlie, we don't have a job for Charlie. Charlie loves his job. He doesn't want to be an inside dog. He loves his job on the farm. He doesn't have his job anymore. And so we actually have somebody coming on Sunday that has 100 acres to pick up Charlie. And he just lost his dog suddenly, his LGD. Sounds like he had a very similar personality to Charlie. Didn't want a puppy. The guy didn't want a puppy, but Charlie would be a good fit for him. And happy for Charlie. Been some tears shed. Walking away from my house, it's the right thing to do. This little thing that we built here has been good. I'm gonna miss my dog, and I just hope the sacrifices are worth it. I'm putting my family through a lot for this, but I also don't want to just end up with what everybody else has. At the end of my life, not being able to do anything, um, because I always just stayed in debt, never invested, and I want to build something big. I want to build something that's impactful. I want to impact people's lives, and I want to give my family something really special. Um, I just hope it's beyond just a fifth wheel, because that's not all that special. But being together is special. Um, so, anyways, when I record the next episode, I'm not gonna have my dog anymore. That's gonna be tough. And in about 3 episodes, we'll probably have the house listed. And in about eight episodes from now, hopefully we'll have the house sold, which will be good. But it's gonna be hard. but I know where I'm at and I know where I want to go. As clear as day. Libby and I know where we want to get to. So I figured the steps, and this is just the next right step. It's just a hard one. But just because it's hard and painful doesn't make it wrong. It just makes it difficult. But there's a reason that not everybody is built wealth. It's because it takes some hard sacrifices and decisions and some leaps. Um, but, as Dave Ramsey says, if you live like nobody else today, you'll be able to live and give like nobody else in the future. And I want that more than I want this. So it's tough, but it's good. Let's pray. Lord, I just pray that you would keep me on the right path, and I would know what the next right steps are as I continue to walk forward. A lot of times, you don't know what the next right step is until you start stepping forward. So I also pray for anybody that's watching this episode right now, just that they would be able to lean into you, and that you would give them clarity on figuring out where they're at, where they want to go, what their right next step is, and that they would be bold and confident to push through adversity and difficulty and lean in to the verse here, 2 Timothy 1:7. For God has not given us a spirit of timidity, but of power and love and discipline. Help us to be powerful. Help us to love those around us as we move forward, and help us to be disciplined in our own actions, and not back down from the hard and the difficult just because it's hard and difficult. That we push through it to get just the most amazing reward on the other side. Lord, I also just pray for myself, my family, and for everybody else who's pursuing this journey with me in their own family and journeys lives, that you would help us to make the sacrifice worth it. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen. To wrap up for today, our identity mantra, I'll say it first. You say it after me. I explore the unknown. I conquer new frontiers. My journey is powerful, and my wake is a wealthy legacy. Remember, guys, wealthy is simply the ability to cover your monthly expenses without having to lift a finger, and legacy is leaving a long-lasting impact on others who come after you as they receive the fruit of your labor. You're going to leave fruit, though. You get to choose whether it's going to be good or bad. An apple tree produces apple fruit. A pear tree produces, or pear seed produces a pear tree, which creates a pear as a fruit. So what you plant is what you'll reap. So plant good seeds, cultivate good trees, and eventually be able to bear some good fruit. And just as a reminder, guys, in the link in the description of both the Spotify podcast, the YouTube video, all that kind of stuff, there's going to be a link to a Google Doc, which has tons of resources I put together to help you in your wealthy legacy journey. They've helped me in my wealthy legacy journey. With all that said, guys, thanks for hanging out with me. And I didn't mean to get so emotional on this episode, but it is some tough stuff. And that's just the reality of it. I want to be raw and real with you guys. I'm not going to try to cover it up and pretend that that's not there, because it is. So with all that said, this has been another episode dedicated to you, your own personal wealthy legacy journey. Thanks for hanging out with me today, and we'll see you guys next week in the next episode.